Well, how much is the stormtrooper behind you? Because that's next. I don't know if that'll fit in here or not. I think that would.
That one's staying. That's a
Oh, that's
no.
a
That's a
no. That's a
no.
hard no, brother. I love
That's a
that.
hard
When I
no.
heard my first no for the morning, I love
Yeah.
it. Could you ever imagine collecting vintage memorabilia could actually teach you valuable life lessons in entrepreneurship and resilience? Today, I'm joined by my friend James Coleman, an entrepreneur and vintage toy collector who runs the Vintage Alliance, a private Facebook group for high-end collectors and sellers. James moves hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of collectible products each month and brings a wealth of knowledge on building a successful business through trust, reputation, and community. His story goes beyond collecting as he shares powerful life lessons on overcoming adversity, learning from failure, and staying authentic in business. Get ready to dive into an inspiring conversation with James Coleman and his life lessons as a pop culture entrepreneur. James, thank you so much for completely annihilating my background, FYI. As an uber Star Wars fan, you make mine look probably pretty pitiful right now. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. I love that background.
You see the diorama right there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If you, it's so funny. You and I actually met. You are the epitome of what a high-end collector is. And I like to consider myself a high-end collector of mocks for vintage Star Wars toys and G.I. Joe guys. And that's kind of the world and the community that you and I met each other on. But it's like I'm here and you're like way up here. And I heard you say one time you were like, well, collectors sell too, right? And sellers
Oh yeah.
sell, but sellers collect as well. And it's like you're kind of that person. You're always moving and moving product and such. But it's, man, you have I envy you because you get the pick of all the best first, right? And I think that's so great with the toy community.
You know, they say don't smoke your own stash or whatever, or don't do your own stash. But I mean, with vintage collectibles, I mean, that's kind of it, man. When I go through collections, I limit myself to a percentage, like 10% of that collection I can keep if I buy out a collection, and then the rest has to be moved within the community. And that has really proven to do well and help continue this obsession, love, passion, business, art form, all the above collecting, right? It's
Mhm.
it's it's incredible. I love it.
Well, I mean, you have a magnetic personality, number one, and I think that within the communities for people who are just jumping in on this conversation is that this is not Facebook marketplace for Star Wars or GI Joe or vintage collections of any kind. It's like there is a community here, and what I love is that right away when we connected, the way that you package your product, the way that you get it there on time, you're trustworthy, you have this name and this reputation, this brand behind you, that you are someone that I could trust to buy a product from. Because I think, and you might add on to this, is like, you, I think products now are so much easier to copy, right? And it's like, oh, here is a vintage unopened Stormtrooper from 1977. I don't know the difference, right? But knowing that it's graded by AFA or CAS or something like that, but it's like to have someone that you can buy from that is reputable and has a brand and image of himself, because it matters, right? It matters. If you sold me something that was fake or was a knockoff, it would come back to bite you. And
Yep.
your reputation as a sales rep, and with me personally and everyone that I've ever dealt with within the Star Wars community and within the toy community, you're top notch. And I would suggest that you are so easily approachable, that it's like you're just that reputation that you can trust and you put your name behind it. And I know for a fact, like if somebody has felt burned or they felt like they got the bad end of the stick, you were like, no, let's fix this, because it's more important to have a good reputation and a brand than otherwise.
Well, speaking of mistakes, we make mistakes as humans, right? And this is one of the operations I do. I do consulting for private property ownership, basically, but for on the large scale, residential, where they own maybe 20,000 units across the nation, right? And I do consulting for ancillary income, so I just kind of look for additional revenue streams that they can tap into. And I had an executive role for a property firm for 10 years, and loved that job. But now venturing into my own world of music, media, collecting, and business, I've melded all of my worlds into one. And what really resonates the most in which sector that's in is truthfully collecting. It's art, it's experimental, it's investment, it's nostalgic, it's fun, it's exhilarating, all the above. And so I'm able to produce my media side and my artistic side through this. And I think it's been a good fit for
Hmm.
both. And yeah, and dude, I've made mistakes myself. Everybody has, and you're right. It's about, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with a mistake? Do you ignore it? No. Do you try to work it out? No. You first see what does the other party view as fair? What does the other party want? What does the other party need? Right?
Hmm.
That's really where you first understand them. That's it. In
Putting
customer
yourself
service.
in their shoes.
Yeah, always put
Mhm.
yourself in their shoes. And it might mean a loss on your behalf, and you have to be willing to accept that. Think of the worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario? Oh, I just sold a $5,000 MOC mint on card mock, right? And it went missing in the mail, and we have insurance, but insurance won't cover it for some reason or another. The leprechaun stole the box and ran away with it, and they don't cover leprechauns. But if it's a standard burglar, it's, right. You
Right.
never, but hey, well, okay, worst case scenarios, 5 grand's out of my pocket. What do they want? What do they think is fair? Right? They
Hmm.
might say, hey man, give me a discount on the next item, or hey man, let's split it half and half since it wasn't your fault. You never know, right?
Hmm.
But you
Well,
you work with people. That's at least my perspective. And one thing you talked about, shipping. Shipping is going to be good. Yeah, dude, I've got it nailed down. And I'm kind of a one-man show when it comes to packing and shipping and receiving, and accounting and detail analysis and support and data. It's
oh
like,
yeah.
I need help. I need
Hmm.
help. I'm hiring, by the way. Just need to find the right person to hire.
I'll just
uh,
put that in the notes right now.
yeah,
The
yeah,
James
yeah,
Coleman is hiring.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's funny because it's interesting. One of the I hear all the time, like people have like, oh, an unboxing video. I'm like, oh, boring. That's like not me. Or oh, here, let's feed a dog or watch a kid play a video game. But you actually did a video where you showed people how to take a mock or a carded figure and wrap it and then package it and then safety. And it was so valuable because there's so many people who don't know how to do it right. Right. And
Sure.
it's like you're just giving this information, this valuable experience to people. And it's like that was so interesting to me. I'm like, is that how he does it? Because that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways to skin a cat, right? But for me, I found an effective way. And I know that numbers speak volumes. So when you do 5,000 to 10,000 transactions in a year, and your success rate is 99.9999999%, just keep following that pattern, right? Just
Minus
keep
the leprechaun.
minus the leprechaun. Exactly. So
Well, well,
yeah,
I
one of the huge reasons why I'm able to get items out so quickly and so assuredly is that I have a little anxiety, man, in life, right?
mhm,
A little
don't like
anxiety.
owing people.
Well, I mean, legitimate anxiety. You think about I think it can be, you can use anxiety as as you know, woe is me, right? Oh my gosh, I have anxiety. What do I just want to lay down. I feel sick or whatever. No, no, no. I use my anxiety. I'm like, okay, when somebody just purchased an item from me, right? The longer I wait to ship that out, the more I procrastinate, the more anxiety I'm gonna have.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to live with less anxiety, I get that item out quickly and assuredly, and we're done. Bing, bang, boom. And it's clean, right?
I will vouch for that. You are on it 100%.
That's what you do, man.
Well,
And it's
in the growing up in the 70s and 80s, I know for a fact that I would have been diagnosed with ADD, right? Like right
oh
away,
yeah. Oh
right?
yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
they didn't diagnose it at that. And so I had to learn how to use that to my advantage, right?
Yes.
And now I'm on a platform and I speak, whether it's now behind a podcast, behind a microphone, or whether
Yeah.
I'm on stage keynoting. So 100%. I love because I'm going to take this a different direction right now, only because it's usually how people navigate no, right? But
Yeah.
you have to be the deliverer of no sometimes. And the reason that I know that for a fact is that you get this collection, okay, of all these pieces. And people, you might post something and say, hey, this is the collection. This is the mail call I got today. And you have a giant picture of all these Star Wars action figures or G.I. Joe action figures or whatever, or comics or even records, right? And
Yeah.
people look in those pictures and they're like, oh, well, I see that Boba Fett back there. Like, can you give me that? And you don't want to part with it. And so
Right.
I've been the receiver of your no once, and that was with the Takara Darth Vader. And it is
Oh
still one of
yeah.
my favorite pieces, but it was one that you didn't want to give up, right? And it's like you have to be the deliverer of no sometimes. You're like, and
Yeah.
how is it that you tell yourself, uh, it's okay to give up this piece, or do you have a hard no sometimes?
Ooh. Well, with collectibles, man, I mean, I would say everything has a price point at a certain point, right? If you know you can, if somebody says I can't live without it, and I'll pay 10 times what you paid for, and I can go replace it, well, why would I say no,
Mhm.
right? If it's irreplaceable, it's I've moved irreplaceable one of one items from my personal collection, and it's something that I have to you gotta decompartmentalize and take it out and let it go, right?
Mhm.
And just recognize, well, that's theirs now. And then when I want to buy it back, it's 5 times the amount, right? It's that's just the way it is. That's the way it is. And no,
But
yeah,
you're sharing that wealth with other people, right? And
yeah,
you're creating
yeah.
that connection with somebody else where now I can tell that story of buying the Takara. And if for people not knowing,
You
the
got it.
Darth Vader, right? And I have
It's
it,
a
and
it's
it's
a
like a Japanese
Japanese
version.
version. I think it's the coolest Vader MOC out there. I with the white background and the red footer, it just pops. It just
Mhm.
pops.
It's
Uh
beautiful. I should have that in the background, but instead I have the AT-AT that I got when I was like
yeah,
7
yeah,
for
yeah,
having my teeth done. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. Well, so you deliver no sometimes, and there's a hard no if it means too much to you, but at the same time, if the price is right, then you can share that wealth with other people and you can say the yes to people. Um, what is what is your favorite piece? Like what is something that you would tell me a hard no? What are you not getting rid of? And is it a Han Solo?
Definitely my Han Solo 65C mock. That would be a hard no. Um, yeah, my AFA 85, straight 85s, pretty much irreplaceable. But I have a first shot Imperial Gunner. I collect Imperial Gunners, and I somehow there's two of these known to exist. It's basically the final version of the prototype of the production figure, right? So
Mhm.
it's very rare, only circulated in Kenner. There's one of two of these known, and I found one of the owners, and I worked on them for 3 years
You
to
talk about
sell,
taking
just
a
to sell,
no, right? Like just
just to
working
sell it.
that.
I'm like 10 grand, 15 grand. What do you want, right? Well, he eventually was willing to part with it. I just kept on kept on knocking on his door, even though he said no,
Mm-hmm.
right? I stayed persistent. And then he finally came up with his price, right? He finally had a price. We had a starting point and we made the deal.
Starting point.
Right.
Awesome.
But when a seller, when a collector and seller, if they don't have a price, there's really nowhere to start because it's in their possession, right?
Mhm.
The art of negotiating. You have to have a starting point, a price. Otherwise, if you're the buyer, you're going to be throwing numbers into the dark, and they're God only knows what they're doing with that. They're just compartmentalizing it. They don't really want to sell it. They don't, you know what I mean? They could be
Mhm.
playing a game in negotiating. So if a seller has a price, you have your starting point for negotiations. You can either buy it or counter offer, right? It's that simple.
Well, I love that. Like for me, collecting now has become something that just brings back this flush of memories to me, right? Like growing up and watching Star Wars and going to the theater and seeing it and then playing with all the action figures. And it's funny because you're an Imperial Gunner guy. And for me at my age at that time, I had already gotten out of playing with toys and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, and unfortunately that was when Kenner kind of had its last little run. And I
right.
remember seeing the carded figures with the coin on it. And I was like, yeah, that's not cool
You're
for a
right.
teenager. I'm like,
Right.
that's not it. But I always remember that was one of the figures that I always wanted because he wasn't on the original line. And so
It,
now
it
I
was your
have to go
guilty
back and
pleasure.
get it. Yeah, I have
You're
to
like,
go
I'm
back
too
and
old,
get
but
it.
damn, that's cool.
But and you know this, I'm an Imperial collector. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
that's all I do is the Imperial. And some of my favorites are the Return of the Force. It's not Return of the Force. It's it is Return of the Force, isn't it?
Power,
It's the Power
power.
of the Force. It's the Power of the
Yeah.
Force with the coins.
Yeah.
And because they're so hard to get and they look
Yeah.
so cool and
Oh
their
yeah.
image is totally always going to get it. I love it. The picture is different than the other carded pictures, right? Say there's the coin. Yep, I was probably too old to be collecting at that time. And for everyone, James loves a card that's unpunched. And if you remember back in the days of cool Toys R Us visits, they used to put all the carded figures, the action figures on the pegs, and it pops the little thing. And so James loves to collect these things without it, and they are pretty cool to have those.
Yeah, I agree. It feels complete. It just feels complete. Satisfies a little OCD.
But there's a story behind it, right? How is it that you got into collecting yourself?
Oh man, when I was a kid, I got hand-me-downs from my brothers, and was watching Return of the Jedi and VHS and fell in love with the film, the storyline, and the hand-me-downs that I had. And I couldn't readily go, it was late 80s by then. I couldn't readily go to the store and buy Star Wars toys.
Mhm.
So I had to find hand-me-downs. So that's where the collecting started. And each hand-me-down, whether it be, through a garage sale or a swap meet or an antique store. I used to go down to the antique store all the time. And each piece had its story. So I didn't play with the toys. They
Mhm.
became collectibles that I displayed right away. And I tried to convince my family to get into collecting with me too. And I said, these things will be worth a lot of money one day. And no, no, no. And I'm like, no, they will. I'm serious, right? So yeah, that's just the passion of it. And I was kind of forced into collecting because I couldn't just go, they weren't toys for me. It was more than toys. It was
More of
more
an
than
investment and a passion.
I mean, I don't know if I was thinking about investment at that age as much, but I still understood the concept. I
Mhm.
understood, okay, I'm buying it at a low price and it's going to be worth more later on, right? I
Mhm.
had that feeling, I
Mhm.
suppose. But collecting now is I'm able to when I was a kid, I would have dreams of finding large collections. I kid you not, regularly. Dreams. I would dream about it. And
I would have dream. Hold on. I still have dreams where I walk into a store and for some reason they have toys that they never put out, and they're just out, and they've been there for so long. Or you go to
Oh,
like this
yeah.
this little town that never got any
Right.
sales, and they're still there, and it's like, and it was baseball
Yeah.
cards too. I have the same dream about baseball
Oh, yeah.
cards or sports cards, and it's like, and you know my story. It's like that's how I was a collector. Is I bought cards and then I sold them to my kids in my school way more than I bought them for, and it just started off on that. And it's like I still have those dreams. Still have those
Oh, yeah.
dreams.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. It's well, that's I'm living the dream. Like, to be able to go through these types of collections and yeah, I'm living that dream. It's pretty remarkable. And uh it's all inanimate stuff, but I like it because it's innocent.
Hmm.
It it's it man, it brings, when you collect, um it brings a sense of, especially if it's nostalgia collections, not just, art or cars or something, but when it's something nostalgic to your childhood, it brings back memories and emotions and you know things that you forgot about. You can easily forget about who you were when you were a kid, right? The innocence, right? And um, yeah, I love it. And having kids and seeing my kids look at
Yeah.
the collection, they're always going to wonder why toys were in glass cases.
Well,
You know?
I know my kids get into my room and they're like, "Oh, those toys are available." I mean, no, 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 those are dad's toys. Sorry.
Right,
That's
right, right.
have you ever has there been a piece that you've wanted really bad besides the Han, and you were told no and you had to give up on, or is it like the Han, you just kept at it and you just kept working and
Well,
until you could find that price?
that was the Imperial Gunner. That was oof, what else? Well, this diorama took 3 years. Okay. My initial vision was just to build a diorama.
Of the
That's all.
Death Star where the shuttle comes in.
Yeah, yeah, with some vintage figures, boom, done, right? That's all. And then this, it all came back. And I can't, I don't even know how many diorama creators I was trying to convince to build this thing for me.
Mhm.
Right. I was considering building it myself, but I'm like, nah, I want to get somebody I'll appreciate it more if somebody else builds it.
Mhm.
I'll hyper analyze every little thing that I do. Right.
I'm glad
And
you didn't hire me to do it because it would not look good.
well, yeah, no. So I finally, yeah,
Mm.
that took me like 6 or 7 years to find somebody, and I still think that this is kind of the prototype of what I'll be doing eventually. I think I'll find the perfect 3D printed with lights and like an exact replica. There's some things about this one that are not an
I thought you were
exact.
gonna say you were gonna make your own Death Star. I was like, I want to go to that. That's cool.
I always thought there should be a hotel in Vegas called the Death Star, and it
I think it's
shoot
the
it.
Raiders Stadium now, isn't it? Or is
Well,
that the
no, that's
Vader?
what it looks like. But yeah, no, but like a hotel, Star Wars theme. This dude, I think it would pop in Vegas. I think it would pop.
That's
A Star
awesome.
Wars theme, all Star Wars theme hotel, right?
Did you get the opportunity to do the one at Disneyland before it closed?
No, no,
I
I
did
never.
not.
No,
I
no.
didn't either. I don't know if we missed anything or not. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't know. I don't know.
Um, well, what? Okay, so you got into collecting, you got into working the business, and it became a kind of a passion for you. And you were like, you know what? I have something here. I'm really good at it. I want to go off and I want to start my own business. I want to create my own brand and my own image. And I know that over the last couple of years, it's been like you've been like this spearheader who's gone out in front of everybody else, and like, I want to create a community that is going to bring people together, and it's going to bring awareness to what collecting is about and that emotion, and just basically educate people who want to learn about this stuff. And I know that in your life, you've done several things, but it's like, what are the hardest no's, or what is the hardest no that you've come along with, either your music business, or whether it is collecting or starting your own business, being an entrepreneur and such? I'd love to hear that side of you.
So, Blue, because I know you so well, and I believe in you, and I believe in your book. I'll speak incredibly personally. And this is going to take a left turn real fast.
Right turn, Clyde. Go.
Are you ready for it?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, here we go.
Well, I thought about a number of things, and I realized what it was, and I was like, oh yeah, that was my biggest no ever. And it was the death of my father, actually. My father passed away when I was 16, and every every angle I looked was a no. My school, you know, certain family, certain friend. I lost friends because they didn't know how to handle, you know, my buddy's dad just died. What do we do? Like, how do we handle that, right? Uh, it was, my whole world was caving in, right? I lost my wings. Um, I lost my strength. You lose your strength when you lose your father, when you're a young kid, when you're an orphan. And the world should be nice and kind to orphans, but they're not, right? And my biggest no was that. And I didn't realize that. Biggest no in the sense of the things that I experienced, in the rest of my teen years leading up to my 20s were, I had to, everything was on my own for the most part, right? I had to go find my own job, right? And there, I wanted to work at a bank. I was told no by three different banks. I wanted a record deal. I was told no originally by record companies. Finally got a record deal. I was told no for grants for college. I was told no. It was just no everywhere. Yeah, I didn't have anybody really, except for some family that was really cool. Brother-in-law and sister were amazing, but I lost my parental situation,
Mhm.
and I could have buried my head in the sand, and I could have said, I lost my dad, and I'm going to turn to drugs and girls and whatever, right? And I'm going to turn to all the things that will make me feel better instantly. But I was able to uh, make my own decisions to head toward a successful life rather than allow some of the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross stages of death and dying really bring me down, right? I could have blamed everybody else for where my life was, right?
Mhm.
But that, I know it's a little bit of a twist, but that was the beginning of the fork in the road at a young age of no, I was going to a private Christian school, and when my father passed away, the funding, uh
It
stopped.
stopped.
So
Mhm.
they came to a 16-year-old kid and they said, how are you going to pay for the school? And right after my father passed away, it was about money. And basically they're saying pay up or get out of here, of my school that I'd gone to since the third
Mhm.
grade, right? It was shocking. It was shocking. And I didn't know how to respond to that. So what did I do? I went to junior college, and then went toward college, and continued life. I had to continue to progress and move forward despite the challenges that I was seeing. So have I heard other, sorry?
No, I was gonna say, like, did you see somebody that you wanted to gravitate towards? Did you say, like, man, okay, what was the trigger that kind of said, okay, I can stop, I can be the victim, and I can be the woe is me? Or My only options, because most failures, most no's, most rejection is it's a setback that presents another opportunity, right? It's like that door is slammed in your face right now, and you don't have the key to unlock it. And maybe you don't want to go through it. Maybe you stop and you give up on life and you quit and you die, right? Or you want to find a way through that, or you find another door, right? Like maybe it's not that important to you. So when the door got slammed in your face and you were like, I could stop. You could have stopped and not gone to school, but you decided to go to junior college. Like there was a why? Was it you saw an older friend that went to junior college? You had a mentor? Was there something or a catalyst that was like,
That,
James,
that, that was my brother-in-law. It was my brother-in-law. He was more of a brother than any brother. He's the one, and my sister said, "Hey, do something." You know, there was a minute there where I was kind of in a standstill, and I said, "Oh, I'm free. Whoa, I can
yeah,
go. I knew in a way that losing my parents, because my father was very strict. So I also had all this enormous amount of freedom before me, right? I would just go hang out with friends for a couple of weeks at their house. You know what I mean? It was
yeah,
bizarre.
no curfew, nothing. You have no
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
responsibilities.
yeah, yeah.
How,
And
what other 16-year-old wouldn't love that?
right,
Hmm.
right. And I wasn't able to lament my father's passing because of all the cataclysmic things that occurred right after, like I no longer lived at home too, because I lived with my father and stepmother, and she moved on with her life pretty quickly. And it was shocking. It was shocking as a kid. And yeah, man, I mean, it's my brother-in-law was definitely the one that helped spark that. And the things that carried me through my 20s and 30s were basic principles my father taught me, basic principles that
You
when I was
still
a kid,
remember.
oh man,
Yeah.
you know my father used to on Saturdays he would wake me up, at 6 or 7. Cartoon Network morning. I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
supposed to watch cartoons, play video games, eat junk food, hang out with friends. No, my dad wakes me up. James, go mow the lawn and make your bed. And I want to bounce a quarter on that bed. Make it well. I'm like, I have the weirdest dad,
Yeah.
you know? I have the weirdest dad. But he was an entrepreneur. He had a PhD in psychology. He had military experience in the Air Force, hence the bounce quarter on the bed. And so I would mow the lawn, and I'm like, okay, I can go watch cartoons and play video games. He would get on all fours, check it. Come here, check it out with me, James. See, it's
This is the
uneven.
lawn.
This is the lawn. It's uneven. Okay, so you got to mow it again. You should do it right the first time. And I'm like, ooh, okay. And you get angry as
Mhm.
you're 16, you're angry mowing the lawn, cussing, listening to your Walkman or whatever. He does it again. Same thing comes out. I finish. I'm excited. I think we're done. Gets on all fours. You got to mow it again. Do it right the first time. Right. So 3 times we finally got it, but it took me 20 years to finally comprehend what he was doing.
Instilling in
I
you.
prioritizing work, right? He had me prioritize work. He had me prioritize doing things with excellence. He had me and he wasn't trying to be my buddy in that situation, but he was being my buddy because he was sharpening me.
Hmm.
And without that work ethic, and I mean, there were a myriad of different stories just like that. Without that, you know, where would I have been? I remembered it. He physically set me in motion, right, at a young age, and we have that opportunity as fathers. And Speaking of which, I got to get my kid to start mowing the lawn. He's 4, so he's, no, I'm kidding. But
Just get down on all fours. If an AT-AT can stand up in the lawn, then he's done a good job, right?
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah, yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Oh, and I
So
mean,
anyway,
and you know my story too. It's like my martial arts instructor taught me, all these life lessons and habits that I eventually put down in a book, right? And my father taught me how not to treat people and how not to act. And it was like both were so valuable. And it took years for me to realize like how powerful that is, right? And I I remember rebelling against my parents and my a good friend of mine years later after my mom found my currency and became like the coolest mom um is that my buddy told me he goes who are the greatest influences in your life? And I was like, well, absolutely my mom and then my martial arts instructor. And he was like, well,
yeah,
what about your dad? And I'm like, no, we didn't really. He taught me how to juggle, never look in a woman's purse, walk her on the inside of a curb, and to open her car door. That's what my dad taught me. And he goes, "No, you learned a lot more." And I was like, "No, I seriously, I just told you the four things I remember my dad taught me." And he goes, "No, he taught you how not to treat people,
mhm,
how not be a dad, right?" And it was like this huge epiphany where I came to realize I was like, this is aha moment. I was like, man, but I mean, it took me 30 years to realize that. And it was like this giant emotional release that
yeah,
he did so much more for me. And he just didn't know how to be a good dad, but he did the best that he could. Right. And he was also the reason that I met my martial arts instructor. So it was like he did the best that he could, but it took a long time for me to let go of the emotion and the taking things personally and look at it objectively. And I think that's also a trick of that I always say is that when we navigate rejection, failure, and self-doubt, it's like you've got to look at things objectively and take emotion out of it. Can't take it personally. And it's like
got
when
it.
you can do that, you see a wider picture and it sets you up for so much more. You're like, I never thought of it that way. I
Yeah,
never saw it. And one of the things that always has worked for me, and the reason I want to bring this up with you is because I'm sure you're going to appreciate it, is that movies and books do that for me. Like I have to
yeah,
see it in a movie where I'm like, oh, that makes sense when it's coming from this character or this and that. And it's like, and books do the same thing. And I think that was like Return of the Jedi was for you, where it was Indiana Jones and it was Empire Strikes Back for me. And it was
yeah,
like those they just made I learned there was a book out there and I'm sure you know it. It's like I learned every life lesson and habit from Star Wars, right? It's like there's all these things.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's true. It's like all of these things have taught me all these life lessons. And it was like being able to step back and see things from a different perspective really, really open up. And I love that you realize the impact that he made on you. And it opened up the awareness of it made you stronger, number one. It made you a smarter, right? And it made you a better professional, but it also let you realize like it opened up the fact that some of your friends weren't really your friends. Some of the people that you most counted on or thought were going to be there for you weren't there for you when you needed them most. And it my martial arts instructor was it was Air Force guy and he would always say something that I've heard from other vets is that you trust the person who's in the foxhole with you, right? And it's like because that's your community, that's who you're with. And
yeah,
when you're not in wartime, it's like you don't know who your friends are sometimes until it really comes down to being in that foxhole with that person. And it's like you were able to see that. And I think that's a very powerful message, James. And I'm glad that you were able to see that.
100%, man. Yeah. You know, your father, do you know that your father loved you?
Yeah, I mean, he would say it every once in a while. I have to believe in my heart that when he told me, when he introduced me to my martial arts instructor, he was giving me a father figure that he knew he couldn't be, right? Because he had other priorities. And he gave me that. And that's the most love that he could give me, right? But in the end,
Yeah.
that man brought me into this world and I owe him everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he did. And you know, there's so many things about, my father that I could reflect on and say, wow, he was a tough guy, and it was tough to know that he loved you, because he was so demanding, in so many respects. But I know that he loved me, and I know that he had his shortcomings and his failures.
Mhm.
And I can, there's some things that I'm going to have shortcomings and failures with my son, right?
Mhm.
And daughters.
Mhm.
And and it will be in different ways, because there's certain, I don't ever remember sleeping in my dad's bed, right? When I was a kid and scared of the dark, say, for example. I don't
Mhm.
remember even having the inclination, like, I'm scared of the dark. I heard a noise. I could go run up and say, hey, Dad, can I sleep in the bed with you guys?
Mhm.
No, that was just out of the question, right? There was a little bit of stoicism distance there.
Mhm.
So I had to deal with the scary noises all on my own, right?
Mhm.
My son is 4, and he comes down every night at 2 a.m., asks me to get him some milk. I get him some milk, and then he comes and jumps in bed, right?
Mhm.
And that's something that I didn't have, that I enjoy giving to my son. He always
Mhm.
feels a comfort, right? So those little things are huge. And those little changes that we can make along the way to be better fathers than even our fathers were. And hopefully he'll be a better father than I am, right?
Well, and I agree with that. And I would almost say, like, I wonder the one thing I know my dad loved me, but what I don't know is if he was proud of me, right?
Oh,
Because his life was cut short. He doesn't know his grandkids. He never, once I moved off from college, when he divorced my mom, he divorced me, right? And so it was like he didn't know Blue Stiley as an adult, as a
yeah.
young adult, or as an accomplished person. He will never know that, right? And it's like, so I won't know if he was proud of me. Um, but I do know that you and I share messages back and forth. I'll send you a picture of my son with my Star Wars guy, or vice versa, or playing sports. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that I know that your kids are going to know that you love them, but I will know from my personal heart that I would always be able to tell them that you were proud of them, because that is something that I could tell someone, your kids, because I feel that and I see that, and that's your authentic self coming out. And so no one, no one is able to say that about my dad. They're like, Blue, your dad was proud of you, because he's not here, right? But I
Yeah.
guarantee you, people are going to be able to say that they are proud of you being a dad to your kids. And I
Yeah.
think they were your son was, or your dad was proud of you, because he could tell the lawn difference, right? He's like, he didn't quit on me. And that's something to be proud of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Maybe, yeah, but I've never even thought about that. What you just mentioned, I never even thought, was he proud in the end? I don't know. You're right. Like, he was a tough guy to impress, you know? And I've got a little bit of that in me. I'm not super impressed by everything, right?
Mhm.
When you've seen enough of this world and experienced enough, there's a certain point where, you've had that same flavor several times, and you're like, well, show me a flavor I haven't had that's really good, right? And it's
Sure.
hard to find
Yeah.
that, right? It's hard to find that. But, you were talking about success and failure, right? Right? Like, what do we learn from our failures, right? And I really define failure as just not reaching a goal, right? You
Mhm.
didn't reach a goal. And that can happen in so many different ways. Now, there's a choice after you fail. You can be a loser, or you can continue on the trajectory towards success, right? Like, and loser in the sense of you lost, and you lose, and you no longer have,
Mhm.
and you give up, and you lay down, and you don't try again. and you blame other people. You blame everybody around you, maybe a business partner, maybe a wife or a husband or whatever, right? Everybody, that's losing, and that's
Mhm.
failing and losing. Now, if you fail and you get up,
What did you learn?
what did you learn? And take responsibility. Even if, for example, let's say you start a business and your partners completely betray you and fail you and destroy the company, and everybody knows it's them and you know it's them. So you can go off the rest of your life for 40 more years, 20 more years, 30 more years, 5 more months, who knows, blaming them for everything that you experienced. But no, what you should actually do is look in the mirror and say, I chose them. That was my responsibility. So the failure is still my responsibility.
Man, I
That's
love that.
that's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough because
And
you
it's tough for everybody. That is a hard choice to make. Go the victim route, go the loser route, or you lost, you failed, but what are you going to do with that? What opportunity is going to open up? What's your next move? It's just a setback. And that is powerful, James. I love that.
you don't cry about it, you know.
Mhm.
You you just you move forward. You move forward. And you know, I've known people, you know, they get into something, they dabble into it, they're excited, they're gung-ho, they fail. And next thing you know, they haven't even tried again. You know, what are you doing with you know, I'm not doing, you know, I just it's it's life, man. We fall on
It's
our faces. So
Yeah,
you just
like, I am who I am today because of my failures, because of the rejections I've received and everything that I've ever thought bad about myself. And it's like connecting with people who believe in me and create that community based on that of friends like you who are like, oh, you can do this, or I believe in you, or I press you. It's like, a, I heard one guy say that the best thing that you can do for an entrepreneur is buy their product at full price and then refer them. And it's just like you are that person as well. It's like I will throw you under the bus. You were doing a podcast once and you saw that I got on and I was listening to the podcast live and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, Blue Stiley's book." And it was just like you didn't have to do that, right? And it was like
yeah,
you were a friend that just out of the kindness of your heart and support, you were there for it. And it's like it's only because of the people that you surround yourself around, the community that help you get through those things. So let's call it a confidence team. And you are part of my confidence team, James.
yeah,
And
love
I
that.
am so glad to know you and be have the reputation that you have and the brand that you have. And I would send and refer anybody that I know interested in mock collecting for sure, or any other things. But
Yeah.
what if you were to ask if people wanted to know more about you and find out more about you, how can they do that? And what avenues are you going down now? And what can we expect out of James Coleman?
Gotcha. So yeah, I still, you know, I do a number of things. I license music and TV and film, so I compose music. I love that. I love composition. And it's always been a part of my soul. You know, it's always been number one for me. I do consult property firms, so I only do that privately. However, not on a Facebook ad approach, but just word of mouth. And we do companies really well. We do companies really well. There's it's an exciting niche opportunity that I have, and then with collectibles, man, people can find me on Facebook, right? James Coleman, or the group, the Vintage Alliance. You know, we're a very exclusive and kind of private group on social media, and we buy and sell and trade. And you know, it's a group filled with gentlemen. There's a bunch of gentlemen in there,
And ladies.
and ladies, and we have a wild time, and we're crazy because we spend crazy money on vintage toys and collectibles and things of that nature. But you know, we do much more than just, you know, provide a group, we authenticate, we appraise. You know, we have the capability to appraise pretty much any vintage collectible needed, you know, whether it be a car or you know, I was looking at a zebra head the other day, a taxidermied zebra head. Those things are worth about $20,000 or $30,000, and there was a local estate sale. They were selling it for $500, and I just thought it would be fun to research it and learn more about zebra heads. Anyway,
Well, how much is the stormtrooper behind you? Because that's next. I don't know if that'll fit in here or not. I think I would.
that one's staying. That's a no.
Oh, that's a no. That's a
no.
hard no, brother. I love
That's
that.
a hard
I
no.
heard my first no for the morning. I love it. James, and seriously, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I think you said some powerful things. I would refer you anytime if anybody's wanted to get into collecting. And if you want a reputable person who's going to steer you correctly, you have always been open to answering questions and helping mentor people in getting into that. And I know that it's a passion for you and you do make something, but at the same time, it's like, it's not about the bottom line for you. And your reputation far exceeds anything that I've ever heard negative on that. And it's like, I would refer people. So thank you for being a part of my community and being a good friend of mine and a mentor to me. So thank you for coming on this. And I look forward to people hearing your message and reaching out to you for sure, because you're the man to go to.
Thanks, Blue.
Thank you, James. It's good to see you, brother. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Navigating No. I hope you found today's conversation just as inspiring and insightful as I did. Since this is a brand new podcast, we'd love your help to make it even better. So if you enjoyed this episode, we would love to hear your feedback. And if you think someone else could benefit from hearing it, please share it and help us spread optimism and positivity. We release a new interview every Monday, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.